A continuación, damos paso al coloquio Políticas de países con decididas apuestas de Gobierno por el turismo, con la participación de Gloria Guevara, secretaria de Turismo de México, Xianzhong Zhu, presidente de la China National Tourism Administration, y Munir Fakhri Abdel-Nur, ministro de Turismo de Egipto. Modera Sebastián Escarrer, presidente de Exceltur y vicepresidente de Meliá Hotels International.
Pues buenos días, bienvenidos de nuevo. Welcome back to everybody. Here we are starting the forum with a great panel entitled Policies of Countries with a Strong Support from Government for Tourism. And for the panel, we've got three great speakers. First, we have Mr. Xu Xiansong, Vice Chairman of China National Tourism Administration, the CNTA, and the Vice Chairman is in charge of the Division of Tourism Promotion and International Cooperation, and I can be proud to say that China is one of the most visited countries in the world, with more than 55 million international tourists in 2010. China also ranked as the third country worldwide in terms of tourism spending, outbeating Spain, and with Chinese travelers' expenditures reaching 55 billion in 2010, an increase of 25.6% over 2009. We have as well Munir Fakhri Abdel-Nur, Minister of Tourism from Egypt. Egypt is a tourism leader destination in the Middle East with 14 million visitors in 2010 that generated $12.5 billion income, which supposed a 16.5% increase. And finally, we have our good friend, Ms. Gloria Guevara Manzo, la Ministra de Turismo de México, Secretary of Tourism of the Federal Government, and Director General of the Tourism Promotion Council of Mexico. Gloria has over 15 years' experience in the travel and tourism industry with great success. And according to the World Tourism Organization, Mexico is the top destination in Latin America and one of the world's 10 most visited countries, having received 2.3 million tourists in 2010. To start the panel, and with a huge exception, we will allow the three panelists to share their views with the public, addressing to all of us from the podium. And we're going to allow just a 5-minute presentation, and after that, I will kindly ask them to finish. Let's start with our good friend, Gloria Guevara, Secretary of Tourism of the Federal Government of Mexico. Gloria, please, the floor is yours.
Buenos días, muchísimas gracias, Sebastián, por la invitación. Quisiera felicitar a todos los organizadores por esta extraordinaria iniciativa de Exceltur y reconocer la unidad que existe en el sector aquí en España. También agradecer a los ministros de Egipto y el viceministro de China por compartir este panel. Yo rápidamente quiero compartirles en español y después, porque la mayoría de la audiencia habla español, después me switcharé a inglés para continuar con el panel, nuestra experiencia en México y sobre todo porque tenemos 5 minutos, quiero hacerlo rápido y concreto. Básicamente, quiero platicarles un poco de la experiencia de México, qué hemos hecho recientemente y de qué se trata este gran acuerdo nacional por el turismo que firmamos, este National Agreement for Tourism. Es la primera vez en nuestra historia. Para nosotros el turismo es el 9%, casi el 9% del Producto Interno Bruto. Es la primera vez en la historia que en nuestro país nos ponemos de acuerdo y trabajamos en una sola agenda. Les voy a platicar rápidamente el proceso. Hicimos primero que nada una evaluación de nuestros activos, nuestras necesidades y el potencial que tiene México, porque como lo mencionó Sebastián, efectivamente, hoy es la 10ª potencia en el mundo de acuerdo a la OMT, 22.4 millones de visitantes tuvimos en el 2010, más 161 millones de viajes a nivel nacional. Eso sin considerar 6 millones de cruceristas y 50 millones que cruzaron la frontera por menos de 24 horas. Por más de 8 meses trabajamos en conjunto para alinearnos todos en el sector, para construir un solo documento, una agenda para el país que contiene 101 acciones y son parte de 10 ejes estratégicos. Fue una labor, como pueden imaginarse, muy intensa, porque cuando se dice el sector no es solamente el gobierno federal, los gobiernos estatales, incluimos a los sindicatos, los legisladores, por supuesto los diferentes representantes de la iniciativa privada, la academia, absolutamente todos. Todos nos pusimos de acuerdo, firmamos este gran Acuerdo Nacional por el Turismo, que básicamente nos permite crear esos cimientos, ese foundation para detonar el crecimiento en nuestro país y poder tener una política pública de largo plazo para realmente crecer en turismo. Definimos un objetivo en conjunto. México hoy se encuentra en la posición número 10, pero creemos que tenemos activos que nos pueden llevar a estar dentro de los primeros 5 en el mundo. Y nuestro objetivo es estar dentro de esos primeros 5 para el 2018 y solamente podemos hacerlo si trabajamos todos en conjunto, todos en equipo. El gobierno federal, estados, municipios, el sector privado, el Congreso, senadores, diputados, los medios, los sindicatos y las universidades. Aquí están los 10 ejes estratégicos, no voy a cubrirlos, pero van desde incrementar la conectividad tan necesaria en nuestro país hasta impulsar todo el turismo sustentable y un desarrollo balanceado. El eje número 9, por ejemplo, es la agenda de los legisladores, que habla acerca de todos los cambios que requieren nuestras leyes. El pasado 28 de febrero, por primera vez en la historia, nuestro país, liderado por el presidente Calderón, todos los gobernadores de los 31 estados que existen en nuestro país, legisladores, sector privado, universidades, sindicatos, firmaron este gran acuerdo nacional por el turismo. Participó todo el gabinete del presidente Calderón. Tuvimos el honor de contar con el secretario general, Taleb Rifai, y el presidente de la WTTC, quienes firmaron como testigos de honor y nos comprometimos en un evento sin precedente a llevar a cabo este gran acuerdo. Hoy en día llevamos a cabo revisiones mensuales y también estamos viendo cada una de esas acciones. Cada acción tiene nombre, apellido, fecha de ejecución. Mensualmente vemos los avances y estamos llevando ese acuerdo al siguiente nivel. En los últimos 8 meses se ha replicado ese acuerdo nacional en 24 estados de nuestro país. Los gobernadores están llevando esa agenda al nivel local, firmando con todos los presidentes municipales, como se puede ver en la imagen, con su congreso local, con los empresarios locales, para asegurarnos que alineamos esa agenda local con la agenda nacional. 24 estados firmamos en 8 meses y próximamente concluiremos los que nos hacen falta. El acuerdo ya tiene un 40% de avance. Todos los compromisos del gobierno federal tienen un 45%, estamos un poco más adelantados porque el compromiso del presidente Calderón es cerrar con los compromisos este año. Y hemos visto ya un buen avance. Por primera vez en la historia en nuestro país, todas las inversiones en infraestructura, por ejemplo, están alineadas con turismo. Turismo define las prioridades para la Secretaría de Comunicaciones y Transportes acerca qué carreteras construir para conectar puntos turísticos, la inversión en aeropuertos, en puertos, por ejemplo. También se han invertido más de 18,000 kilómetros en carreteras que conectan todos estos lugares turísticos. Se ha asignado dinero para apoyar en créditos para agencias de viajes, para empresas turísticas. Todas las secretarías de Estado en el gobierno tienen asignados objetivos específicos para el turismo. Secretaría de Educación, Secretaría del Trabajo. Hemos llevado a cabo conferencias de prensa en conjunto para comunicar todo lo que se ha hecho y lo que se está haciendo y lo que viene, sobre todo a fin del turismo. Y el 2011, el presidente Calderón lo decretó el año del turismo, que para nosotros es tan importante para el crecimiento de nuestro país, para sentar las bases y para crecer básicamente en estos cimientos que necesitamos. Muchísimas gracias por su atención y creo que sí fueron 5 minutos. Más rápido.
Muchas gracias, Gloria. Thank you very much, Gloria. And now we'll have Mr. Zhu Shanghong, Vice Chairman of China National Tourism Administration, who will address us a few words as well.
Distinguished Mr. Taleb Rifai, Secretary General of UNWTO, Mr. Sabri Askaria, Chairman of Exceltur, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to be back in Madrid and join you in the discussion on the role of tourism in promoting the economic growth and job creation. Looking around, the impact of the international financial crisis is still deepening. The impact of the financial crisis is still deepening. Economic growth in major tourist sectors market is slowing down, and the protectionism is resurfacing on the world stage. All those have made tourism even more difficult. Being open to the outside world, China's tourism sector is facing the same situation. Yet, with a firm conviction and practical steps, we have succeeded in keeping the tourism sector steadily moving forward. In 2011, China's domestic tourists are estimated to reach 2.64 billion person times, which was 13.2% higher than the year before. International overnight arrivals reached to 57.3 million, which is a growth rate of 3%. Tourism receipts reached $47 billion, and Chinese outbound tourists amounted to 69 million, up by 20%. Those figures show that tourism is playing a positive role in promoting economic restructuring and boosting domestic demand. Firstly, tourism is playing a more important role in driving China's economic growth. Tourism revenue in China is expected to reach $357 billion in 2011, up by 20% year on year. The added value of the tourism sector now already accounts for over 4% of China's GDP. Tourism also boosts consumption. In 2011, the Chinese people spent $306 billion in domestic travels, which amounted to over 10% of total household consumption in the country. Secondly, tourism is playing a more important role in addressing China's employment challenges. From 2006 to 2010, tourism generated about 3 million direct jobs and 17 million indirect jobs in China. Now more than 13.5 million Chinese people work in the tourism sector, and about 80 million people work in tourism-related jobs. The tourism sector has already become the largest contributor of jobs in China. In the meantime, tourism is also playing an important role in providing jobs for people living in ethnic minority regions, as well as women, migrant workers, laid-off workers, newly graduated job seekers, and other special groups. Thirdly, tourism is playing a more notable role in promoting China's rural development. Issues concerning rural areas and farmers are China's top priorities. According to the incomplete statistics, 53,000 villages and over 1.5 million rural households are now offering tourist programs in China, benefiting 15 million farmers. In 2011, more than 600 million tourists visited China's countryside and generated a total of $23.8 billion in tourism revenue. That is why tourism development is being incorporated into the framework of national strategies. Recently, Chinese leaders have stressed on many occasions the importance of promoting tourism consumption. In December 2009, the State Council issued an opinion on accelerating the development of tourism sector. In March, the development of tourism sector. In 2011, the outline of China's 12th five-year plan confirmed the role of tourism in supporting the development of China's countryside, maritime space, and the western regions. In May, The State Council approved May 19th as China's National Tourism Day to boost the tourism awareness of Chinese people. In September, Vice Premier Wang Qishan expressed his confidence in the future of China's tourism in his meeting with the Secretary General Talbot Rifai. The National People's Congress is now coordinating the legislation of China's national tourism law, and the national outline of tourism issue is also being drafted. Local governments and relevant government authorities are now paying great attention to tourism. Out of 31 Chinese provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities, 27 of them have made tourism of their pillar industries. In the future, China will step up support for tourism development in terms of infrastructure, financial resources, and land policies. The State Council also already decided to keep its Tourism Development Fund in place till 2015 and provide more funding for taking tourism plans, organizing professional trainings, and developing tourism-related public service system. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to follow the principles of long-term, comprehensive, and mutually benefit tourism development and open our tourism sector wider to the world. We are confident that with increased policy support and policy innovation, we will have the conditions and abilities to maintain stable and fast tourism development, better utilize the multiple functions of tourism, and make a new contribution to the sustained and balanced world tourism growth. Ladies and gentlemen, Chinese New Year is coming next week. I wish you all have a good luck in the Year of a Dragon. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. And finally, the Minister of Tourism of Egypt, Mounir Fakhri Abdelnour, will address us from the podium as well.
Mr. Talib Rifai, Secretary General of the UNWTO, the Chairman of Exceltur, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me first of all to thank you for giving me the pleasure to be with you this morning and the privilege to address you. It would be an understatement or a euphemism if I started my opening remark by saying that 2011 was a difficult year for Egyptian tourism industry. 2011 started with the 25th of January revolution, a revolution admired by all people aspiring to democracy and human rights, a revolution that has inspired youth around the world, all the way to Wall Street in New York. But like any drastic change, the revolution had a negative effect on the tourism industry in Egypt. Egypt has been all through 2011 a country in motion, politically and socially. Egyptians were and still are determined to change governance and demand accountability. They are adamant to build a new, modern, secular, and democratic state. As a matter of fact, we're trying to follow the steps of Spain 33 years later. And Spain is our role model. To this end, several serious steps have been taken, including passing a law allowing the formation of political parties, a new electoral law. As a matter of fact, we have just completed free elections to elect a new parliament that will be convening on January 23rd. A constitutional assembly will be elected and a new constitution drafted, and the presidential election hopefully will take place by the end of June. On the social front, a few laws have been passed aiming at reducing the unbearable inequalities. We realize that there is still a lot to be done and that the road to democracy is long and could sometime be bumpy. But we're confident that Egyptian people who have sacrificed their youth and led this inspiring revolution will be able to surmount the many obstacles facing them. We remain optimistic. We remain optimistic for the medium term, and the rationale for optimism is easy to articulate. In a democratic society where liberties are respected and where citizens freely elect their leaders and hold them accountable and replace them if they do not meet their aspirations, policymakers are likely to adopt policies that serve the interest of the majority of the people, thus create an environment conducive to growth and development. But we're also optimistic in the short run, because despite everything, we are seeing positive signs. On the political front, Egyptians feel they have regained ownership of their country that was stolen by the dictator and the cronies around him. They feel that we, the people, must decide of our own fate and are participating in shaping the future of their country. We're optimistic because despite all what seems like a big mess, the economy is moving ahead. In fact, 2011 exports surpassed the previous years by 18%, and we project a growth rate in the fiscal year 2011-2012 of 3.5%. We're optimistic because notwithstanding the events of 2011, Egypt attracted 10 million tourists, generating a revenue of $9 billion. This is the result of three sets of reasons. The first, the strength of Egypt as a touristic destination and its competitive advantage. Without false modesty, Egypt is a golden destination. It is a unique country. Rare are the countries on our globe that can offer tourists what Egypt does in terms of diversity of products, in terms of quality of products. It has a unique cultural heritage, magnificent beaches on both the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, and ever-growing infrastructure for ecological as well as for wellness tourism and adventure and desert safaris opportunities. Rare also are the countries around the world that enjoy the weather that Egypt does, with guaranteed sunshine 360 days around the year. On the other hand, we did everything that is in the book and often improvised to bring back the flow of tourists. We did not and will not spare a minute or a penny to market, advertise, communicate, incentivize in order to get out of the crisis. The third set of reasons behind the bouncing back of touristic flow is the reality on the ground regarding the security. In fact, not a single incident was perpetrated against a tourist since the beginning of the revolution. Security prevails everywhere, and this fact is supported by testimonials from visitors and tourists. Unfortunately, the media is only airing the events that occur from time to time in Tahrir Square, which are not necessarily representative of the prevailing calm and security all over the country. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, tourism has been for more than a decade one of the main pillars of the Egyptian economy. It has accounted for 11.3% of its GDP. It employs 1 out of 7 of Egypt's workforce. Again, back in 2010, revenues from tourism amounted to $12.5 billion. But more importantly, it's the growth potential of the sector, and this is why development of tourism sector will remain one of the priorities of Egypt's economic policies, no matter who is in government. Consequently, we are taking the necessary measures to build the adequate infrastructure to host some 30 million tourists from all over the world by 2017. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me giving you my message. I did not hesitate for a second to come to Madrid to attend this prestigious gathering as well as the Fitur trade show. My message to you on behalf of Egypt and its tourism industry is simple and clear. It is optimistic and confident. Egypt is open for business. It welcomes your investments. It welcomes your tourists. We'll take very good care of them. Thank you. Sorry for being late.
Thank you, Minister. And let's start a round of questions to our different panelists. Starting with questions to Ms. Gloria Guevara. How has this huge change happened? I remember in 2009 or 2010, I was called by our good Mexican friends from CENET in order to fly to Mexico and to be presented in their conference in order to help them. At that time, the president was trying to merge your minister with the Secretary of Economy. So we came from almost a secretaryship that almost disappeared, that to movement where in 2011, Presidente Calderón created the year of tourism in Mexico. What is the reason? All of us, we know you, your energy, but how have you been, this huge change happen? What have happened with the ministers in other sectors or areas of government? How have they assimilated this? And what lessons have you learned about the process throughout this huge change?
Thank you for the question, and that's a very valid question. In 2009, we had a very challenging year in Mexico. As you know, we had this economical and financial crisis that started in the U.S., which is our neighbor. And on top of that, we have H1N1. So the government went through, and the entire country went through a very challenging time. And President Calderón, as a lot of presidents, as we heard from the president from Spain, they put together a plan to have some savings or cut some expenses within the government. You're right, they were trying to merge tourism and economy, as they did an assessment. As some other countries, such as Spain, for instance, that's combined, and in Colombia and some other markets. So he was trying to send the message that we were trying also to be more efficient. But at the same time, he understood that it was not the right thing to do at that time, so he pretty much corrected the strategy. Now, tourism is a priority for President Calderón. It has been a priority for Mexico because it employs today 2.5 million Mexicans directly and almost 5 million indirectly. And he is a truly believer of this travel and tourism industry. Last year, as you mentioned, he declared the Year of Tourism, and this is part of a strategic plan. When he invited me in 2010, early 2010, to come and join his cabinet, as you know, I came from the private sector, he pretty much asked me to put together a strategic plan and to make sure that we included every single part of the industry or of the sector, because the only way to grow is to work together as a team. And I would say that the first lesson that we have learned is that the government cannot do it alone, as well as the private sector cannot do it alone. We have to work together on tourism. And that's something that has been crucial, that we learned since last year and actually since 2010. So in 2011, we implemented that plan, started with the Year of Tourism, then the National Agreement. And then after that, we have had multiple activities and making sure that everyone understands the importance. I guess the challenge, Sebastian, here, and I think you mentioned that in your speech as well as Talef, everyone takes this industry for granted. Everyone knows that this industry is the first one being impacted when you have any political situation, economical, social, weather, everything impacts the travel and tourism industry. So it is the first one to be impacted. But at the same time, it is the first one to recover. And we know that it's easier and faster to recover from the travel and tourism industry, and at the same time, it's just take it for granted. It's not appreciated.
Can you put some clear examples of this public and private partnership that can be extrapolated to other countries?
Well, there are a lot of things. For instance, the private sector came to us and they say, we need financing, we need credits. Usually, the travel and tourism industry is not that easy to get credits. For instance, from little companies such as travel agencies or small tour operators, all the way to hotels and even airlines, they have difficult challenges, or I would say difficult times and challenges getting financing and credits. And something that we did together is that they came with the needs, and then we spent some time with our Secretary of Commerce or Economy in putting together the guarantees so that they will be allowed to have credits for tourist and touristic projects. And that's something that we have in place. And since then, a lot of money has been assigned for credits and for financing for these small and medium companies that they never had credits before.
And as well, for ages, promotion has been shared public and privately in Mexico. Any advice to other countries or in terms of investment through Fonatur?
Well, Fonatur is another good example. Fonatur is the arm of the government that invests in infrastructure. It is very aligned with the interests of the private sector. And something that we do is we work very closely with the private sector. We plan from scratch. For instance, Cancun was planned from scratch 40 years ago.
Very well.
Now we're building the new Fonatur in Sinaloa. It's called Playa Espiritu, or Spirit, right, the destination. And what we're doing is planning everything from scratch. It's going to be a fully developed center. The government is going to be investing in that area. But at the same time, we will be maintaining that area. Like Cancun, it's not that we invested. No, we invested, defined the plan, the infrastructure, then the investors came, acquired the land, and then we continue maintaining that area. And then we promote that. So at the same time, they can recover the investment sooner than in any other destinations. So it has been a very successful model for us, but we work very closely with the private sector because at the end of the day, we have very clear that the private sector is the one that creates the jobs. And if the private sector is successful, we're going to be successful.
Thank you, Gloria. Moving to Thu Shanhong, the Vice Chairman of Tourism in China. How are we going to maintain the long-term growth, sustainable growth of tourism under the current complications and uncertainties in the world? China is growing, but what is happening, especially in Europe, but as well in Occidental world, is worries China, and how to fully exploit the tourism's capability in facilitating the balance, social and economic development. Taleb and Gloria mentioned today about the need of sustainability. How can you facilitate this balance?
Okay, thank you. You see, I think countries and regions and in the world should work for long-term growth and for the tourism and with a more open attitude. So firstly, I think we should establish the mechanism for regular exchanges of the ideas and conduct joint research on strategic issues. So we should also develop an international coordination mechanism for handling tourism emergencies and jointly monitor and manage the negative impact of the natural disasters, epidemic diseases, and the economic crisis and other emergencies on tourism sectors. Secondly, I think the development of tourism economy is still the implementation of the national, is still unbalanced and between the different parts of the world. Therefore, I think we should bring down the barriers in the trade, in the investment of promote global integration of tourism industries. And we should explore ways to establish a World Tourism Development Fund and to support the tourism development infrastructures in the developing countries. And also, we should also pay a great attention to the role of the education and high-skilled professionals in tourism sectors.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Moving to the Minister of Tourism of Egypt, Munir Fakhri. As a country that is located in the Mediterranean, that it's competing with some Spanish destinations, I believe that for the audience and for a number of the public that are investors or good travelers to Egypt, we will need to see the current situation, 2012. How would you describe the current situation? And in your opinion, with the new government that has been elected from the recent elections, will continue to support tourism? Can, by any chance, the Islamic laws impact the tourism development? Suddenly, it was heard if we could see in the future separate beaches from men or women, or hotels being prevented to sell alcoholic drinks, things that we cannot consider, but I think that it's a good opportunity for you to explain the current situation. Please, Minister.
Sure. First of all, thank you for your question, and let me tell you again that the media is looking for sensationalism and is emphasizing really what events and news that raise eyebrows. In fact, two things. One, the touristic sector is of such an importance that no one can touch it. Let me tell you that the tourism sector in Egypt employs directly close to 4 million persons. And 4 million persons is equivalent to 20 million individuals, 20 million Egyptians. I don't think that any political force, any government can touch this sector. Number two, it is the biggest or the second biggest source of foreign currency for the country. Number three, it represents almost 12% of the GDP. It is so important that nobody can touch it. And let me tell you that maybe some statements have been made a few weeks ago by some Islamist politicians in this regard, but they all backtracked when they saw the reaction of those employed within the sector, or the reaction of economists. They all backtracked. I mean, you're saying that you cannot imagine it. Don't try to imagine it. It will not happen. The second point, what about 2012? 2012 will continue to be a challenging year. No doubt about it. In fact, we're facing two problems. First of all, the first part, or the first few months of the year, are the electoral process is continuing. Not that this is raising any risk, but it's a fact. And the second thing is that Europe is going through a very difficult period economically, and this will definitely have a negative impact on Egypt, on the tourism in Egypt, and in fact on the tourism industry in general. Everybody will be affected by the economic crisis of Europe. But as far as we are concerned, two things. One, we continue to build our infrastructure with the aim of being able to host 30 million tourists by 2017. And number two, we want to get out of our traditional markets. We want to diversify our markets. We want to go to China. We want to go to India. We want to go to Mexico. We want to go to Brazil. We want to get out of the beaten path. And again, I think that Egypt has a lot to offer to those countries. I mean,
Thank you very much for providing the confidence. I think a lot of people in the audience needed that
And
confidence.
then, let me tell you, you said that we are competing. Maybe some destinations, some seashores are competing. But I'd like to draw your attention that we could be complementing each other. If we do try and attract tourists from South America, they could come to Spain, then come to Egypt. We could have joint programs. But more importantly, we could complement each other, because if your investors and your building industries have a problem, they are more than welcome to come and join us in partnership to build the infrastructure we need to host the 30 million tourists we want to attract by 2017. So let's look at each other as being partners and not as competitors.
Thank you, Minister. We completely agree, and as one of the investors that have invested in Egypt, we fully agree on that. Just a final question for you. What is the tourism model and the market positioning that the government promotes for the future? And together with that, when do you estimate that the situation will return to business as usual here in Egypt?
I think 2012, by the end of 2012, it will be business as usual. I think 2012, by April 2012, with Easter, I think tourism in Egypt will get back to its normal levels. I'm optimistic. We are taking huge steps, not only to ensure that security is total and all over the country, but also we are trying to promote new products. One of them is the long Nile cruise from Cairo to Aswan. And let me tell you, again, without false modesty, it's one of the most beautiful trips in the world. And I invite you to come and do that trip on the Nile for 10 days. It's something really not to be missed. I'm not trying to sell. Well, I'm supposed to try and sell, but as for the model, we're trying to raise the level of services in Egypt. We try to create centers of excellence to pull up the level of touristic services. And as I said, we will succeed.
Thank you for your kind invitation, and let's hope that April comes as soon as possible and to have this business as usual situation back in Egypt. Moving to Gloria once again, let's talk about coordination as an essential tool. And I would like to hear things that can be extrapolated to other countries regarding this articulation of the interministerial coordination in the field of your government. You were talking how bi-monthly you were meeting and talking about tourism, but what was the reaction from the other ministers, the other secretaries? And the same thing, how has been coordination been articulated at the regional, at the diverse states and municipalities in Mexico?
In Mexico. From the office of President Calderon, they assign a couple of resources from his staff, and they work with us in order to make sure that all the actions assigned to the federal government are implemented on time. So we meet, in that case, there's a team that meets weekly, and we meet within the government once a month. That's something that's internal, so we make sure that our actions are according to the time frame, and that's what we have 45% of progress made. Now, at the same time, we have a meeting with the private sector, with the universities, the unions, everyone, the legislators or the representative of the legislators. That one at the beginning was once a month, and now is every other month, to make sure that we have the right progress on time. Something that we just coordinated recently, we took a look of the 101 actions, because at the beginning we decided 101.
Whoa.
At the beginning we decided that those were the actions that we needed to create the foundation and pretty much the strategy for this national agreement. And we prioritize some of the ones that are still pending, and they were very important for the private sector. So we're providing that feedback back to the government. But let me give you a couple of examples that are very interesting. One thing that we hear clear and loud from the private sector is connectivity. We need more flights to Mexico. We need better connectivity, and we need also to have an easy transit to the country and within the country. So something that we implemented is to work very closely with the transportation minister or secretary, and basically something that they have done in the last 5 months, they have negotiated already 5 new agreements for connectivity. One very important for us is the Canadian one. With Canada, the last agreement that we had was since 1970. And as you can imagine, it was very obsolete, had a lot of restrictions. And the new one is based on the needs that the private sector provided. And now we don't have the restrictions. In the past, we had the restrictions of only having 2 airlines from every country flying between 2 city pairs, like Mexico, Cancun, Vancouver, for instance. Only 2 airlines were allowed to fly from each country. Now it's unlimited. That has changed. And that's based on the feedback that we received. Same thing in the case of Russia. We implemented, this is the secretary who negotiated this, a new agreement with Russia, and now we have more connectivity with Russia. The other thing that it was implemented, President Calderon gave the mandate to change also the visas requirements for some of the countries based on the feedback from the private sector. Going back to the Brazilians or the Russians, for instance, it used to be 45 days to get a Mexican visa. And it was, quite honest, a nightmare because they had to fly, for instance, from Rio or Salvador to Brasilia to the embassy, have a face-to-face meeting, an interview, bring the entire family, pay for the ticket. By the time that they were ready to go to Mexico, they probably spent all their time and the money. So now they can get the visa in 5 minutes. It's online or through a travel agency.
And Gloria, at the regional level and municipalities,
well,
how have you coordinated with them?
We coordinate with the secretary. Every state has a secretary of tourism, and we coordinate to them and to the governors. And the governors are very engaged. The secretary of tourism within the state pretty much is mirroring what we're doing at the federal level. So they have specific actions. We interface with the ministers or secretaries of tourism of the states. We take a look at their actions, and we work with them so their activities and their actions are very aligned with what we're doing.
And was that replicated, the bi-monthly meetings?
Yes. They created what they call a touristic cabinet, un gabinete turístico. And they have members also because the governors assign people from their cabinets, and they have members in this touristic cabinet where they meet also once a month. Now, I have to tell you, some states are more advanced than others, and what's very interesting that states that they're assigning the resources and the time and the effort and the priority for the government and the governor, we're seeing that they are moving faster than the states that are taking more time.
And do you have any mechanism to track, or do you have key performance indicators?
We have a scorecard for the national agreement, and also we have what we call like the semaphores, like the 101 actions. You can look at our website, that's public information, and you can see green, red, or yellow. If they're on track, it's green. If they're red, they're way behind, and that's embarrassing, but that's the truth. And they know that we publish that. And in the case of the states, I mean, they do that at the local level. Like, for instance, if there's an action very specific for one specific state, we don't keep track of that action, but we keep track of all the results at the state level. It's more like a business plan for the entire country. I have to say, it's a challenging task, but it's paying off. And for us, it's creating that foundation that we need in order to take advantage of the potential that we have.
Congratulations, and thank you for sharing with all of us. I do recommend different ministers to go to your webpage. For sure, from Exceltur, we will use it and as an example of good organization, but as well as transparency and pressure to the different agents and the different ministers and regions to do their job. So congratulations and thank you for sharing with us. And We are running out of time, but just in order to be balanced and just the final question for the Vice Chairman. We've heard Mexico, 2011, the year of tourism. Can we ever see that in China? And how is the Chinese Tourism Administration organized and structured? The example that Minister Guevara has just explained to us with a cabinet that meets bi-monthly and the different ministers talking about tourism. You mentioned how tourism is the largest generator of jobs in China. Can we see this being structured as well?
Well, China National Tourism Administration is a national authority in charge of tourism for the whole country, of course, and direct leadership of a state council. So CNTA has mainly have 8 departments. So we also, of course, we have overseas offices, altogether 19 overseas offices in 17 countries. So there are main tasks, for the China National Tourism Administration, mainly for the making of tourism development policies and preparing, draft up relevant laws and their regulations. And of course, making marketing strategies and organizing campaigns, for promotional campaigns, both domestic and inbound. So, and also, of course, promote international communications and cooperation with other countries. And sometimes, of course, we are organizing surveys and plannings of the development of the protection of tourism resources. You know, for the last few years, tourism developed very fast in China, and we have so many people traveling domestically. Just as I mentioned, last year we had about 2.64 billion Chinese people traveling in China. So we are facing a lot of problems because too many people go to one place at the same time. So the Chinese government is really paying great attention to how to maintain the stable, the situations, and also protect the resources. So so far, CNTA is trying to work hard to coordinate with other countries, and because we have so many people traveling outside China, it's about last year about 69 million Chinese people traveling outside. We have the problems of safety, because last year we had so many places in the world, they have the problems. So we found it very hard to keep it safe for the Chinese tourists. That's why we are work very closely with other countries, try to make everybody happy and safe back home. And of course, we are trying to work very hard to attract more foreigners, people coming to China and have a good time in China, of course. So we are working very hard, try to meet the demands of the people from different parts of the world.
Thank you very much, Vice Chairman. Thank you very much to all of you. We've have the opportunity to hear from 3 different countries which governments support tourism very much. We've heard how Mexico declared the year of 2011 the year of tourism, and how we can extrapolate that to other countries. For sure, it will be very beautiful to see that happening in Spain. We see how in Egypt we're expecting from April to get back to business as usual, and how all this Islamic exaggeration, where we have got the confidence that we won't see that in a beautiful and great tourism country as is Egypt. And we've heard as well from the Vice Chairman from China how we've got great opportunities in China. We heard from Talib Rifai how there are 2.6 billion people moving, Chinese people moving, and how important is the domestic market, but as well how in China we've got 55 million tourists, tourists going every year, and their plans for the future. So thank you very much for all your time. We will be back now after 20 minutes for a coffee break with a new, very good session from the main businessmen from all over the world that really back tourism as well. Thank you very much.